Okay, guys, welcome back to the Relentless Warrior podcast. We have an unbelievable treat for you today. Curt Mitchell spent a long career, served in multiple Tier 1 units, both in the military and then transferred over to the federal government. And we are truly, truly blessed to gain from his experience. He shares about a pearl of wisdom every sentence. So this might be one we watch a couple of times. But I can't tell you how excited I am for you all, for us to get to benefit from his knowledge. He really is a Renaissance man, and we get into some really great topics, I think, that help us all get ready for the road ahead, as well as benefit us in our day-to-day lives. So appreciate you being here and enjoying benefiting from truly one of the wisest individuals that I've met. And so sit back, get comfortable, and as always, stay salty, stay sharp. This is Relentless Warrior. So like I said, would love to start with just sort of your kind of give us the bullet points of your career and kind of what got you here.
Okay, going back even before career, I was born and raised in North Carolina, and it was during that typical what people would call the Gen X era in the 70s. Very little parental supervision, but actually just the right amount. So I had a wide latitude of freedom, and I grew up with a childhood of exploration. Going in the woods and being there the whole weekend. It was okay with my folks. Hey, going camping. They wouldn't see me for 3 or 4 days, which really helped shape who I become later on, and then how I look at things affecting our youth now, and they don't have not having that latitude and freedom. But in the high school years, I was that kid who was a chameleon. I was accepted in the jock group, the hothead group, and then more importantly, I was the nerd group. I was in, they call it gifted talented at the time, the program, and of course, wondering how I was in there compared to all the Azad shirt wearing kids that were also in there. But bottom line is, I had a really strong interest and proclivity for doing well in science. So I was a freshman in classes with seniors, for organic chemistry, physics, and at the time, my thinking and my fantasy was to go to college and obviously be a scientist of some sort. One of the teachers at the school was a former French foreign legionnaire, and by comparison with other teachers, blonde hair guy looked like a Ken doll. He's like super fit, tan. And I told my other friends, it's like the teachers had a love-hate relationship with him. Like, they kind of hated the guy because politics were obviously different from theirs. But yet all the female teachers were also digging him.
Of course.
So, but it's while I was there, seeing some of his photo albums he had in the study hall at the library, was that pictures of this guy in all sorts of other countries, and some were action photos. I mean, just really interesting. And then also come to realize he speaks multiple languages.
Okay.
He's been traveled. It looks like, and yet somehow he's literally the school librarian.
Wow.
What
a cool guy.
Yeah. Well, he was. He was a real cool guy. Great sense of humor. Sense of humor now that would have him canceled. So he was also, are you familiar with the old magazine called Soldier of Fortune?
Yeah, of course.
So it was popular in the late 70s and early 80s. That was its heyday. And he was an associate editor also for that. So he would leave school on breaks and go down to El Salvador and help the El Salvadorans deal with the communist guerrillas.
Wow.
And what it is, I'm seeing all this guy's smart, has a graduate degree, speaks multiple languages, and what it was giving me a perspective that I'd never even considered, that not this academic science life, but I'd go out and have some adventure
Sure.
and, you know, because a lot of times, being a former infantryman, kind of viewed as these knuckle dragging,
Without question.
non-smart kind
Yep.
of guys. So he tells me, he goes, "Hey, you want to use your intellect and you want all these things that you say that are intriguing you," he goes, "Special forces is definitely where it's at." And didn't get into the whole thing of SEALs, SF, Rangers. Like he
Right.
said, special forces, and I realized later on why. But you know, sign up, 11 Bravo contract. There were no none of this 18 X-ray stuff
Right.
existing, at least not for me at the time.
Yeah.
Going on infantryman, and then of course later on making it to special forces, and that starts this long, circuitous story. I served in 2 Tier 1 units. Most people are just
Oh,
familiar with one, but I actually
yeah.
served in 2 separate Tier 1 units, and then also a good portion of my military time was in something called the SIF, Sinking Extremist Force. It's
Yes, sir.
basically like a hostage rescue counterterrorism force. Really great concept, a great place to be. In the latter part of my military years, especially with the crest, the beginning of the GWAT,
Mhm.
uh, I was recruited and brought into a Tier 1 unit.
Sure.
It had more of an intelligence slant
Okay.
to it, so think
Sure.
about, like just some like really specialized recon,
Gotcha.
and exposed me to a whole different world, even what I thought was a sneaky world to begin with.
Right.
And I retired out of that unit, and I did some contract work for a
Mhm.
very short while, and then I was recruited to come into the federal government to help start a new organization.
Sure.
And this kind of relates to the conversation we were having earlier at the table. Was my wife
Mhm.
said we were going to have a baby,
Yeah.
and I was only planning on staying in the government long enough to help start that organization for
Mhm.
maybe 3 years, and then I was going to get out
Sure.
and go back to contract because it's more lucrative.
Of course.
Well, lo and behold, we don't just have a baby, we have triplets.
Of course.
And
Right.
I'm looking at the situation, I'm like, do I really want to get out there in the contracting arena and
Mhm.
possibly going overseas, doing all this other stuff? Or so I actually stayed in the government longer than I expected. I ended up retiring from the federal government just a
Gotcha.
couple of years ago. So, and that was all in intelligence
Mhm.
arena,
Yes,
all the
sir.
way from being a guy who was out there doing the stuff overseas to moving into more senior leadership positions.
Yeah.
And as alluded to our conversation earlier, that's where I found out about things such as ubiquitous technical surveillance and these things that I really felt were valuable for even individual citizens to protect themselves.
Sure. Well, and it feels like those things are becoming more and more valuable each day. I
Yeah,
mean, the couple hours we spent around the table, I learned so many deficiencies in my own, digital situation and things
yeah,
like that. So that's fantastic. And I want to come back to that, but I know you graduated high school, I believe, 16, right?
yeah, yep.
And
Graduated a year. Well, I say I finished it. I stayed on though because I signed up for the Army. My parents had to do a special because at 16, you're just not, but you
can't
could
go
sign up for it. So I signed up for it,
right.
and that was part of the bending of the honor. So I said, I'm doing this either way. You either can get me signed up now so I can get in, or we'll just wait till I'm 18. I'm here
And
with my
then
thumb up my butt,
and then I'll
and
yeah,
I'm doing it. And they were bummed. Neither of my parents went to college.
gotcha.
From I would say we were like on the edge of poor
Sure.
there in North
Absolutely.
Carolina, and even though my father did real well later on, real well by middle class standards, and
Sure.
it really that college, having a kid go to college was a big deal. I assured him that I would, and I
Yeah.
did. I ended up going back and got 3 master's degrees. You know,
Sure.
he checked all those boxes, and while they're interesting, they have nowhere near the weight and value of the experiences I gained from that other life that
Of
I ended up
course.
pursuing.
Right. And and I think a lot of people who might listen to this may have some familiarity there, but I imagine through the selection processes, both with both tier one organizations that you used, in addition to the academic prowess you showed, and I know you do a lot of mindset work now,
Mhm.
right? What do you for both, guys like us who the prayer of let there be war in my time so that there can be peace in my kids' time. feels like that one may not happen, or it may, but it's going to be at the tail end of my capabilities and probably right in the middle of my son's.
Right.
So what are the mindset conditions, or what are the mindset hallmarks that you not only try to maintain for yourself, but in your with your triplets? What are the keystones that you're trying to instill in them?
Um, it'll almost sound like a platitude, but it's this uncompromising attitude towards truth. The word truth. This comes into clarity. We can all have biases and
Sure.
individual preferences, and being able to recognize that, but also being able to change our position based on what the truths are
Yeah.
as evidence, not as influence, but as evidenced. And
Yeah.
so that's actually served me very well, because there have been times where um, uh, I've been able to break up, think, things of that
Okay.
nature.
Yeah.
Um, Towards your point of the times and what they're bringing us. Uh, I don't want to beat this horse to death, because it's been, but the COVID scenario was
Oh,
probably the greatest. It actually is the one that allowed me to propel more people forward than any other. It's horrible that crisis occurred,
sure.
revealing the extent of what manipulation, persuasion, the
Absolutely.
techniques used to cancel people.
Yes, sir.
There was a lot of truth to be gained from that, and the way people consumed information, um, what their own criteria were, or were they in that slow boil where they were just nice acquiescing to, oh, to keep your job, you got to do this, to travel
Right.
here, you got to do this. It's like I never compromised on any of that. I
Right.
either found ways to subvert it,
Awesome.
or to outright avoid it, just like, you would boycott certain businesses if
Sure.
they didn't do it, and you would just tell others as well. And
Yeah.
it's not the crappy kind of canceling some people do, but it's the
Right.
kind like, these people are imposing on your liberties here,
Right.
and it's for truly no reason. It's just a go with the flow company. That's horrible.
Yes, I think it was to prove that they could get you to do it.
In some cases,
I had a ironic conversation where the masks served to really unmask the nefarious purposes that there are groups in this world have. And I think in a lot of ways it was, look what we can influence the masses to
yeah,
do.
yeah.
It's
It reveals the stupidity of other things, because you think about going through TSA. So at the beginning of this, uh, my son, my buddy Ben and his son, we took them on a survival/camping adventure in Idaho.
okay.
Uh, Twin Eagles Wilderness School, so
Okay.
they also do rites of passage, I
Yeah.
think, but using the vehicle of survival, so it's really cool. They do a little vision quest, all that good stuff. The bottom line is, during COVID, we go do this thing, and instead of masks, this is before they even got strict on the type mask.
Yeah.
I had both my son and I wear baklava's, so just this,
Yeah.
typical. In any situation, they'd be tackling you
Yeah.
in an airport, and we're showing it on film and everything. Like, this is how stupid it's because of this thing. First of all, these do nothing
Right.
whatsoever,
Of course.
and here we are going to an airport and getting on a plane with Bach. That was just laughable.
Yeah. Of
It was
course.
laughable. So, yeah, the mask thing unmasked
Yeah.
a lot, and it goes back to that truth piece. Mechanistically, masks can serve a purpose like they do in surgery and things of that nature, but they don't. Nothing is 100%. So we all know okay, I'm employing this measure to risk mitigate something.
Right.
But when it came to the COVID virus, literally what you had, have you ever heard of the chain link fence analogy with the COVID virus? Wearing a mask, because the micron
Sure.
size, it's basically like shooting BBs through a chain
Chain
link
link
fence.
fence.
Literally, that's
Right.
the size.
Yeah.
You were not inhibiting it in any way.
Right.
Yeah, just simple fact-based things like that. There are absolutely scenarios where a mask would be good in some epidemiological scenario, but it's clear that was not the case here. This was a manner of control.
Yes, sir.
In the government, we call it compliance psychology. And it was where you could do things like in the social engineering aspect of things, uh, the people who were coming up with the phrases like safer together.
Yeah.
All these little keyword things to help, like, just coax, the masses along. All that stuff was the lessons were learned from that.
Yeah.
For some of us in the citizenry, lessons to be learned to be vigilant of it. But, for other actors, it was like, okay, this is what works. This is how we, get them to go with the flow.
Get folks to comply, and it was almost like a morality of, the moral thing to do is become one of the sheep.
Yep.
Versus, and surrender agency, right? Surrender your own agency.
I mean, how un-American is that?
It's antithetical, right? It's antithetical to the American way. You're absolutely right. And so that commitment to truth, I think, from a preparation standpoint, is what drives a lot of preppers. They say, no, the future and reality is different than what we're being told it is, right? So how, in your experience, and obviously there's things you can't share and things like that, but what are some of the mechanisms in terms of smoke screens and distractions that are utilized to influence that compliance and that surrender of agency?
Right. So a good litmus test for yourself as an individual is whether you're on Twitter, X, or any mechanism out there that you're consuming information from, is as you're there, is there any type of emotional response elicited?
Okay.
And it may be called using the mask. You see someone come up saying, I went to the supermarket today and I confronted a man who wasn't wearing the mask or walking down the aisle. You're immediately like, okay. And because you're feeling vindicated, you're in the right. And this person's, a knucklehead.
Right.
But the thing is, that's still an emotional response is elicited into you, which once that happens, because you don't know what their agenda is with this piece. And this may be a random knucklehead.
Right.
But the bottom line is once you have the emotional response, and let's just say your amygdala, which the fear response, all these things that can play, that's when you crack open a door of influence. Any type of emotional response is correct. So what you have to learn is to really recognize the emotional response and get your critical faculties back online. Okay. And then, whatever systematic procedure you may use. Some people think this is all very, my God, do I got to go through life thinking like this is a laborious process? It becomes second nature. What it is, you basically calibrate your bullshit maker. That's what you're doing. You go through it and you realize, okay, this thing is just completely harmless. Someone, trying to basically using their own weaknesses and their emotional responses to push it onto others. But and then there are cases where it's done intentionally and with an agenda, which you'll typically see with some of the social media influencers. Right now, the crisis du jour is, the Palestine, Gaza, all that stuff. So you have to be very careful about what you're looking at. If you get past all of that stuff, and like what's going on truly from the military perspective, how are things being implemented by Israel, what is being adhered to or breached on the Palestinian side, you start looking at it like that, you take that emotion out of it to the extent that you can, because you're going to probably have a preference either way on the issue. But just continue and look at it from that, not from, my God, this is genocide, or from the other side, this is payback for October 7th.
Right.
All it points to you because you actually don't have any skin in that game.
Exactly right.
That's the other thing. We don't have skin in games that we get emotionally worked up for.
Yeah.
So I'll say that. That's on the smoke screen front. Calibrate your BS meter. And know that if you have any strong preferences, that's the thing you need to explore to make sure you are on the right side of the equation. Make sure they're based.
Yeah, for sure. That's so many times we see people adopt fights that aren't theirs and have no impact on their tomorrow. It's sad, but it's almost a caricature of an example, but it's and I've seen it several times. It's the trans people for Palestine. And you talk about what would their experience be if they were themselves in Palestine, and how they're advocating for that group. Talk about a susceptibility to influence. You're literally advocating for. Exactly right. Oh, what a great term. But that's exactly right. You're literally advocating for an ideology that would want to exterminate you.
That example you just put out there has come up many times. You'll see in certain internet discourse, you got the people like literally like the Trantifa types or whatever,
Right.
with their flags, and someone tries to be like, hey, what would happen if you were there right now looking like this?
Yeah.
But it always stops there. It's like the other side never is held to account. No, go through this and let's lay this out. And then what it reveals in a further fashion is that, once again, they don't have skin in the game, but it's all manufactured. These aren't grassroots things. They're funded. If you see the videos where like one asking the person, so what is your stance on XYZ that they're protesting? And they're literally like,
I don't know.
well, I mean, they don't even know what the issue is.
Exactly right.
It's incredible.
They know they're making their paycheck to be out there and hold that specific sign or whatever.
Yeah, so that's where you can't look at any of these events as portrayed as to face value.
Right.
You cannot do it.
Yeah, which is crazy because so much of American history and things were those grassroots sort of uprisings and expressing opinions for injustice and things like that, and now that's been twisted to and it's not exclusive to the left.
No.
Right. So many conservative minded or whatever it is.
Equal opportunity retardation.
There you go. That's a good. I mean, they will adopt these fights, these crises, these whatever it is that literally have no impact on them, on their tomorrow, on their ability to take care of themselves and their families, those types of things.
And that's are you familiar with Nick? Sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
Because you just got me thinking. Because on the skin of the game front, there's you ever heard of Nicholas Taleb or Talib?
Yes. Yeah.
He's one of the book Anti-Fragile. That's what most guys know. Yeah. He wrote one called Skin of the Game.
Okay.
And he goes through that concept and where that's so systemic of the problem, these people being involved in things. And what's even worse is when you have someone who's not only not involved, has a stake in it, but they somehow have a way of influencing the situation. But if it goes south, they have zero accountability because there is no skin in the game. Right. Connell is the politician who's the war hawk. Yeah. Who in his family, where's his skin in the game?
None of his lineage just jumping in a foxhole.
That book, I will say, it outlines the problem set pretty well. Even though I will say this, because I enjoy the guy's work, but I've been following some of his commentary on X now, and you can see where he's even been captured. He's been letting some of his emotional rants in there. You're like, hey, buddy, you might want to go revisit your book.
Your own book. Right. Yeah. Another exactly. And I think, another example is I think it was Senator Kennedy just put a deal out where during this government shutdown, unprecedented in length and things like that. And he said, let's stop paying Congress. Yeah. It's skin in the game mentality.
That's a good platitude. But that's one where, because my experience in the arena, whenever these guys say anything,
right?
I mean, so that's a great way for him to think he looks good. But guess what? Congressional salaries don't mean crap,
right?
It's because to those now, you've looked, because all the stats are there for everyone to see now. People are becoming rich. Basically saying we're all susceptible to, even though Taleb wrote that book,
right?
Very well done, and explains things to include in that book. I suggest you read it, first of all.
Gotcha.
You'll come into a section called The Tyranny of the Minority.
Okay.
And it's where you wonder how things like wokeism could ever take root in our country, because it's this small minority, but they're tyrannical in their efforts. Their voice is way out of proportion into how many people they represent, things of that nature. He's a mathematician, an economist by training, and he goes to show you how the math of these things work. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, even though you might have this small minority, but if they're, it's almost like the Islamists, how in the world did Islam become what it is? It's this tyrannical type of modality and lifestyle they have that is able to influence a far greater amount than what it should,
right?
And what actually comes out in reality. He goes into that, the tyranny of the minority. You have to really be aware that you can't just discount this movement because it's a bunch of flakes.
Right.
You let them go unabated. Next thing you know, they've compromised entire systems.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, we've got a perfect example when you look at the mayoral election in New York City.
What world are we living in?
100%. I mean, even obviously 9/11 and what happened in New York City. But just even if you were to take that out of the equation, to hear, our parents, if we told them, what we were going to elect as the mayor of New York City, they would, it's an impossibility,
Yeah.
And it's that chipping away of, and again, I think that all goes back to the influence thing
It is.
that we talk about, where so many people, one, are afraid to offend, or afraid to be canceled, afraid to be labeled some kind of hate monger or whatever, and so we tolerate lunacy.
Yeah. 2 key words are afraid and tolerate.
Yep.
Those, they're insidious.
Absolutely. And I think we have to actively, work against them. It's really interesting to me. And we talked about this a little bit before we were recording, is that, you've got some individuals who have been red pilled, right? They're awake, and are actively trying to prepare and be more aware of what all is going on. But then there's some of those built-in civilized tendencies where it's like, oh no, we want to make sure everyone feels warm and fuzzy and nice and things like that. We don't want to. None of us want to walk around being jerks.
Yeah.
But what do we sacrifice?
We've given the leftist a free playing field because we have been, as the name's conservative.
Right.
It been, that particular side of the movement has been conservative to its own detriment, not calling things out. That's why I was really happy to hear about the Doge effort, even though now we're not even a year into it, and it's already, seems to be fizzled. But the things that identified, that's legit. I mean,
absolutely,
this massive waste. Not only waste, but something that's actually being used against us in many cases.
Absolutely right.
So, yeah, that type of thing was an example of, okay, that's where you're pushing back, and wow, look at the impact that is possible. But then there's always this acquiescing and just falling back. And it's like, you're like, wow, man, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And, so we got 3 more years of this particular administration to iterate. We'll see if they can get their footing back. But right now, the distractions have definitely caused them to fumble.
I agree.
It's depressing.
Which is, it really has. It really, because there was such an optimism.
Yeah.
When Trump came back in, he's nothing to lose. We're going to really, and so I do think
Ukraine was going to be a done deal.
Right.
So that's one of the things I've noticed is the distraction towards a lot of these foreign policy issues. Man, this is all about the U.S. We don't become an isolationist nation, but we do have to focus inward. And everything you hear about continues to concentrate on these other nations, even the Venezuela, the interdiction. So it's funny how that's all a big deal. First of all, we've been doing this kind of stuff forever. The fact they televised it from the Department of War and did all that stuff, probably think, oh, this will show people we're doing something. Man, that's really not, that's like, to me, that's like going and nationally televising an arrest warrant on a felon in a local town. It's like, this is so below the radar kind of stuff, that you should be focusing on, hey, this tax bill that is going to sunset, this is how we're going to make sure that this thing continues to save. U.S., how are we making our own people's conditions better? And our, kids.
And are we? And, And again, it goes back to picking up the battles that aren't ours, becoming emotionally attached to those, and then completely distracted by them, so that we aren't engaged in the thing that are going to impact us and our children, which is, I mean, it's
tribalism, James. So, like we're talking earlier about being a fan, the Bucks, stuff like that. The word fan is short for fanatic. And what happens is, primarily we typically see it on, left versus right. But there's this team mentality that ends up clouding, objective reasoning. And that's what we're seeing at all levels. I would have hoped, with access to so much information, people would start seeking out on their own, like how to discern It's not occurring, not at any level that's
Well, and I think we're actively choosing not to discern. So many people,
especially if you're a fan.
Absolutely right. Yeah, so many people would rather win the argument, the whatever, than identify what's actually best for us in the future and things like that. We're not concerned with that. We're not discerning. No one's infallible, but we want our guy to win. So,
are you familiar with sunk cost fallacy?
Oh, yes, sir.
Okay, so this is where it's manifested in a really sad way. Are the people during COVID who not only got the shots themselves, but I know of people who were trying to use connections to get their children in early on the shots. I want to make sure, and with some of these folks, these are personal situations. I know of some friends up in Virginia. They do that, and then later on, the red pill does take effect, and there's regret. But then they're seeking out, okay, how do we mitigate things? Because they've actually gone a very emotionally stable and rational. Then there are others, though, because of this fanatical aspect of their team, are literally burying their heads in the sand, and their children are developing some autoimmune issues, stuff like that. You can't say that's the cause. And first, got to say, humans are complex systems, but we're just looking at things, in a holistic manner. I'm looking at the probability of some things. I'm looking at this particular population experiencing these things.
Right.
More so, am I just going to, so I can still virtue signal on my social media? I'm just going to ignore that at the peril of my child's health and future,
which is unbelievable.
Yeah, it happens.
It absolutely does, and today it happens to the extreme.
Yeah.
It's interesting to me how we've done it forever. So when on our break you asked about my military experience and things. I served under Clinton, and it was during the time of the Monica Lewinsky investigation, and every time something would go poorly for the president, there would be another 10 or 20 or 30,000 troops needed in Bosnia. All of a sudden, right? Just suddenly we needed, and it was so blatantly just to flip the news cycle and give there to be something else to talk about. And depending upon which team you were on, right, regardless of the lives being lost on the other side of the planet or anything like that, it was yes, absolutely, we need to send troops to Bosnia, or no, we don't, or no, we have to focus on what the president's doing after hours, blah blah blah. And it's this idea of distraction just continues to replay itself over and over and over again. The topics, I think, have become more extreme on what we distract ourselves with, right? Like the gender surgeries and things like that for 10-year-olds and stuff. Those are real things that have to be addressed. And I believe that they were propped up to distract us from other things that impact us more on our daily lives, impact the future more. So you've done, you've had an amazingly interesting but very high speed, intense career. I know you did, once you kind of got out of that, you tried to do some physical things. I think I've heard you talk about like adventure racing and things like that. And what's your approach to staying? We've mentioned it here on this podcast, I think once before, FMC, right? Fully mission capable, right? When you look at remaining fully mission capable, and both physically, right? I know you just came off of a really horrific accident, right? And so you're working your way back there. That takes a mental toll as well, right? So what's your approach to remaining fully mission capable? And obviously as we age, that the definition of that is different, right? What's your daily approach to that? To with all of these distractions going on, you see the writing on the wall in a way that very few people are able to see through. You see through the smoke probably much more so than most anybody.
More than I wish I did.
Sure, right. And with all of that, what are the things that you do to help yourself stay grounded, and then also to impart that with your family?
Okay. So FMC Well, let's just go with the middle, the mission there.
Mhm.
What is the actual mission? I mean, is it something that you gleaned from another group, kind of adopted someone else's, or have you done what we call the actual mission analysis?
Right.
What does somebody, and that's going to change over time. So with me, there's a period of life where I was operating at extremely high levels,
Mhm.
not only in skills, but physically as well. And one of the hard things for any guy who's, whether he's had a great athletic background or just was, always a physical person, is coming to terms that that is not something that remains constant through your life. You don't go,
Right.
I don't go to my gym line anymore. When I was as a 168-pound guy benching 315,
Right.
that ain't happening.
Yeah, right.
All right?
Sure, right.
And the thing is, I could care less, too,
Right.
but do I care less because I can't do it and I've decided, or no, what's my mission analysis told me, where do I need to be?
Right.
So FMC could relate to what another friend of mine calls RFA, ready for anything.
Yeah.
I was actually heavily involved for several years in a government program called the Operational Readiness Regimen, developed by a close friend of mine now who is actually, he went from being a civilian in the basically what you call the physical fitness space, and he was also an accomplished fighter, to now he's working for the government at the PhD level.
Wow.
Doing this performance stuff, and I've been an instructor for them or on a contract basis through the past couple of years. And but we call it, so instead of ready for anything or in actual physical fitness parlance, it's called GPP, General Physical Preparedness.
Okay.
So I started noticing all these parallels. This is why my life in special forces came to serve me so well later on, from the standpoint of gaining an inherent wisdom that we were actually unaware of. The military does a lot of things. Some of it's just done because that's the way it's done, but there's actually a lot of wisdom.
Sure.
A lot of wisdom in it. And one is, you probably heard the concept of the Renaissance man.
Yes, sir.
Okay, it's like pretty much very wide breadth of knowledge, some depth in some areas. There's a Robert Heinlein quote. I can't remember it. Paraphrasing, a man should know how to change a tire, change a diaper, do X, Y, Z.
Right. Yeah.
Specialization is for insects.
Yeah.
So being able to do all of these things, that greatly appealed to me. It made me realize in special forces, so you initially go through your initial special forces training, and it's going to have an emphasis, whether it's in weapons, engineering, demolition, communications, etc.
Yeah.
That's what your initial entry is, and you bring that to the team. But all of us would cross train in the other specialties, sometimes even going back to the school point, training that MOS.
Sure. Yeah. Wow.
So I realized at the end of it, I had this great breadth of training. How while initially was concentrated on one area of expertise, by the nature of the beast, you gained expertise across these areas, much like a Renaissance man type of concept.
Love it.
On the physical side, you would, if you knew what certain missions were coming up, of course you would train toward, like if it was mountaineering, high altitude mounting, you'd train towards those things. But in the absence of that, there was always just this general level of training. So whatever the next day brought up in terms of prices or whatever, you could be brought up to speed rather quickly.
Right.
And that's where this kind of ready for anything concept is. That's pretty much what I've adopted now. I don't have a mission like I had in the military. I'm not only type of team. I don't even participate in like the obstacle course race or anything like that anymore. But it's what realistic standards out there are worth trying to maintain a standard, a level of that realistically answer the mail for being someone who's going to be useful in any situation. And and doing that with my kids. So you can find all sorts of stuff. But one we're having fun with right now is are you familiar with that GBRS group? It's run by SEALs, DJ Shipley.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, I got you.
They came up with their own little physical fitness standard. It's basically a broad jump, which that's actually a very good standard.
Absolutely.
It tells you a lot about yourself, about your hinging and everything.
All that.
Bench weight of your benching your body weight a certain number of times. Of course, there's levels. There's the standard, the minimum standard, which I think is maybe 1.5 times your body weight 10 times.
Okay.
The broad jump, the bottom standard is just you're able to broad jump the same distance as your
That's your
length
height?
of your body.
Oh, okay,
Height, yeah.
cool.
So and there's deadlift with trap bar. That's
Okay.
like multiples of your
Right.
body weight.
Yeah.
And standard goes up 800-meter run. It's got a time. And,
Sure.
But bottom line is, if you just can do the minimum of each of those,
Yeah.
for a regular human, that's actually pretty darn
You're
good.
pretty squared away, yeah.
And then you can see other standards. Like super proud of one of my daughters right now. And so this is, first of all, for any female, but she's 15 years old, little beanpole.
Mm-hmm.
She can do 10 dead hang pull-ups.
Love
I'll
it.
tell you right now, I mean, you've been around physically, you know how hard that is.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, man, she knocks them out. So she's got that one. That is one of those items too. So anyway, using that right now is kind of our ready for anything thing. And it may change later as I find something. You know what? Either add one, subtract something.
Mm-hmm.
I've got multiple examples of these kind of things I've had throughout the years, even that we used in special mission units. There was one called the upper body round robin, which was a variety of things. And at the time, statistically speaking, if an operator could perform at these levels, they could pretty much do anything. If you start showing deficiencies in one, you better correct it, because
got to fix that.
It could affect all sorts of things. So that's where I'm at now.
Okay.
In life, is really just maintaining that ready for anything type attitude. And the only thing that would ever skew that would be, just like with any other mission analysis, is some upcoming event or something in the environment that changed so drastically that I need to skew my training.
Sure.
Let's just say we moved to the mountains of Colorado and I'm operating at 8,000 feet north.
Right.
Things, I'm gonna have to skew my training.
Absolutely.
Right now, at sea level.
Yeah. Right.
Florida.
Yeah.
So that's where it's at.
I got you. So it does. And so with regards to adversity, right? Let's say hypothetically, a guy's riding a mountain bike, takes a fall, breaks his neck, right? And so that ready for anything. What's the mentality of the preparation there to be that unexpected adversity that comes in, right? Whether it's physical, right, like what we've just been talking about, getting back on track. Once, so I've talked on here a lot. My son broke both femurs. He's had 3 surgeries on 2 legs, and some pretty major surgeries, right? Unexpected adversity. So how do you? And I know you went through a pretty major injury, and we talked earlier today about the conditioning level that you were at pre-injury, and the benefits with regards to your rehab and your recovery, right? So without question, obviously the qualifications or the Q courses and things like that to do what you've done in your past life. How do you keep the sharpness there between your ears as we get older, as we physically, the performance metric is different, right? How do you keep the sharpness mentally to overcome adversities that we some that we can predict and some that we can't?
So that sharpness aspect, that's an ongoing battle, because what did come with many of my injuries were concussions, brain injury, and all that. And I will tell you, there was a period that I went through where it was pretty bad. I was hospitalized for my brain injuries. I've had many other types of acute injuries, but that was the one that had the most significant long-term implications. And I attacked it full force. I mean, got smart. Like I said, I actually went and completed 2 additional graduate degrees, nutrition and epidemiology. Epidemiology,
wow,
was so I knew how to read studies, and I never had to rely on anyone else's interpretations anymore. I found those studies super nuts.
Yeah.
And the other one was nutrition, because as one doctor said to me, and I liked his reasoning, was, we go out and we take whatever pharmaceuticals, prescription medication. You take, let's say, an 83 milligram baby aspirin daily, because it's good. 83 milligrams. That's like this. But yet every day we take in food in kilogram quantity.
Right.
So if this little thing is making that much of a difference.
Yeah. Wow. What a way to look at it.
Exactly. So let's pay attention to these inputs.
Mm-hmm.
And Well, I will say there are so many people who are self-educated on nutrition who do a much better job than any registered dietitian or nutritionist. Um, I realized if I was going to help, so this is my desire to educate other people and just
Sure.
help whoever around. So, and also for reasons of credibility, it's like, yeah, they know Curt knows a lot of stuff. He seems to be smart in a lot of things, but now I can also say, well, actually, I have a graduate degree in epidemiology, and this is why this, and by the way, a graduate degree in nutrition, even though I'll tell you right now, I knew more about nutrition than anything I learned in my graduate program.
Sure.
That
Right.
was just kind of confirmation and learning the lingo. So when I'm speaking to medical practitioners or others who might appreciate what I'm saying, but then when they realize, oh, you're it's unfortunate that's required.
Confidentiality.
Yeah, and my phrase is competence over credentials. So I don't care if you're a PhD,
Right.
if you're a general, what are you competent? Your
Yes, sir.
seniority or amount of time spent in the field means nothing to me unless
you-
you've actually gleaned usefulness
and are competent.
use it. Yeah, confidence.
Yeah.
Confidence above all. But so with all that said, I learned a great deal from the brain injury piece, and I did quite well in getting myself back up to speed. The most challenging task is not falling off the wagon. You know, I was doing some experiments. I typically did 90-day experiments where real strict on something to see how it would affect me. Now take 90 days off.
Right.
In hindsight, I should have been more particular about my 90 days off periods of those, because I was coming off this strict regimen. Then I'll just kind of let myself go. It was kind of a mental break. Well, that did damage.
Sure.
The message learned there was, intentionality. Be intentional. Don't just think if it's the cycle. Now I'm relaxing and eating whatever, sleep habits going off kilter. No, be intentional about everything and at least touch those things that would meet your ready for anything goal.
Sure.
I mean, fast forward all the way to this accident, which we're at 7 months post accident right now. Mountain biking, pretty severe. Had to be, helivac'd out of the woods. Was completely paralyzed from neck down. Now knowing how things work with the spinal column and everything, there was the shock to the spinal cord and the swelling. So my legs came back rather quick.
Okay.
Because that's not where the injury was primarily C-spine, but I was paralyzed in my upper extremities.
Okay.
And they're gradually coming back. And now I'm at functionality. I'm working more on strength and I was an avid shooter. Like literally, I'm having to retrain.
Wow.
Like my handwriting, all that stuff. And we're only 7 months out, and I'm doing, by all measures, better than anyone could ever expect. Just had my 6-month neurosurgery consult last month, and the neurosurgeon actually brought in the chief of neurosurgery. Like, hey, you remember this guy that was medevaced in? They call him General Doe and all that good stuff. And the guy's like, he goes, we didn't tell you at the time when you were going into the rehab hospital. After the regular hospital, usually when the guy has no functionality of his fingers, that's pretty much just not a good sign.
That it'll ever be back.
And so they don't tell you that at the time.
Right.
The thing is, the rule of thumb is, let's see what's happened a year afterwards. That's kind of like once a year, pretty much what you've got's what you got.
Gotcha.
So you better take advantage of that window of healing to do everything you can, which another military buddy of mine who's still in a wheelchair to this day is resulting. So I forgot how many 6 rounds, a couple to the spinal column, but he told me as I was going through it, he goes, Curt, I don't care if something even has a 0.1% chance of working, do it. He goes, because that thing they told you we're about a year out. He goes, whatever you've got is what you've got. So do everything you can in that window. Yeah. And telling him and other guys with spinal cord injuries, that was one regret a lot of them had. They would just kind of like, I'm not going to do this thing. They realize, anything that could have given you just a percentage point of improvement was a percentage point of improvement. So I've done some pretty novel interventions and things that aren't available to most people. Most people just don't know about, that I would tell you absolutely move the needle. And then to your earlier point, one of the reasons that they say I did well was because I wasn't an out of shape couch body when
Right.
this thing went down.
Right.
There's a saying, it's in the bodybuilding community, I believe. It's like stronger people are harder to kill, and they tend to be more useful. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean,
Sure.
it's a simple saying, but it's absolutely true. And I don't care what sport you're in, a golfer, tennis player, whatever. All these sports that used to eschew doing any kind of lifting or resistance training, they've all come to find out strength helps you perform.
Without question.
So yeah, without question. But
Yeah.
it used to be a question before.
It did.
People go,
I mean, you think about it with women, right? With women and the resistance to training. That's it. And I don't want to strength train. I want to run, or I want to, I would do some sort of aerobic exercise or whatever. Fantastic. But the health benefits of strength training for women are off the charts. And so, it's interesting to me that so many of these things just about, physical training and general health and things like that, how they correlate to our preparedness for whatever the future holds. Right. Had lots of conversations here and, with our community and of maybe not the most optimistic for what the next 50 years look like for the United States, depending on how things unfold and things like that. But it's the idea that strength builds resilience for whatever comes next, And if it's great times, right? You mentioned that phase, right? Weak men creating bad times creating strong men creating good times.
Yeah.
Wherever we are in that phase, and people have different opinions about that, the constant is that development of strength is not just a physical thing. It's a resiliency across the board. My friend and yours, Clay, he cracked me up one time. He said, I'm not, we were talking about acumen with shooting and getting better with firearms and things like that. It was at a time where he probably wasn't where he had been in the past physically. He's like, yeah, but I'm really good at fighting with bullets.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so we supplement our resiliencies, right, or our strengths to cover some of those perceived weaknesses or declinations as we get older, which I think there's value to that. But I also think there's value to the idea of, I'm 46 right now. It's novel, and I think most people would reject it. But the idea of being faster, stronger, more mentally sharp, more spiritually sharp when I'm 76 than I am today at 46, there's real value to that approach to the next 30 years. And I think I probably stole that from you. I think I've heard you mention, hey, 30 years from now, I want to be in the entire spectrum of development. I want to be stronger than I am today. And I think that there's a resignation that people in our generation go, well, I've crossed the finish line I've hit my peak, and now this declination is inevitable. And rejecting that to some degree,
it's like
important.
Have you ever heard of a guy, Dr. Peter Attia?
I don't think so.
He's pretty well known doctor, and he's got a podcast called The Drive, but his couching of it is what he calls the centenarian Olympics.
Okay.
So he's couching it towards him being 80 years old, and what can I put my luggage in the overhead compartment? And so he has these things. He goes, as long as I'm doing these things at this age, I should reasonably expect to be at that age, barring injuries or something else, to be able to do these things. And the way I look at it is live long, drop dead. In other words, I want to continue to live, and I'm active. I'm this guy. I'm not. What I am not is bedridden for 10 years and then die.
Yes.
It's like, I don't care if I'm running down the street. So I've had a heart attack before.
Okay.
I had the heart attack while I was running.
Okay.
So this goes back to just grace and everything else. I was able to get back home and then go,
oh my gosh,
get treated. The doctor's like, if it hadn't been for some blood vessels shunting around there, it would have not been a heart attack. It would have been cardiac arrest, which
Right.
is death on
Yeah.
the spot. And
Huh.
yeah. And so the bottom line is live long, drop dead, because none of us want, because that's where society is. Society is in this chronic disease paradigm, type
Absolutely.
2 diabetes and all these things that then branch off and create more comorbidities that,
Yeah.
once again, let's just go back to the COVID learning strategy. Who are the people most at risk? Those with these chronic
Absolutely.
comorbidities.
Mhm.
You're healthy, chances are this is going to be shunted off like the flu.
Right.
That's the bottom line.
Absolutely.
So this goes back, it's for our health, our longevity, and this aspect of actually being useful
Mhm.
in our lives. So I'm an older dad, so
Okay.
I'm 60. My kids are 15 now. I remember my son was in Boy Scouts, and we go to the Boy Scout thing, and this day they were just making paper airplanes, competition. And there's this one kid that's over with us, and I see his dad off to the side. He's like, "Hey, sir, can you help me?" So I helped him do his paper airplane. This is going to seem to be very extreme, but it's true, and it was disturbing. His dad had never learned to make a paper airplane. So I'm like,
wow.
most of the average age of those dads would have been like my sons,
Gotcha.
like 30 years old or so.
Uh-huh.
So I'm kind of like, a lot of groups, I tend to be a mentor for the men who are grown men.
Yeah. Right.
Who, if I'd started at the age of most of my peers, would be my son's adult ages.
Sure.
So, but I got to see that in that Boy Scout paradigm there, about how many of those men had not had the benefit of doing these things.
Mhm.
And some were physically fit, but most were still part of a paradigm where they were in these narrow lanes, like run, you got to do marathons, to do this. And
that's all I
in
do.
Special Forces, there's a saying: be stronger than the fastest runner and faster than the strongest guy.
Love it.
And
Love it.
another term they coined is a super medium. Being super medium, well-rounded. So I believe in this concept, the Renaissance man concept, or what some people call the polymath. Most people, when they hear those things, they think of these academics.
Yeah.
No, Leonardo da Vinci, not only was he known for all these areas, he was also known as a guy who liked to try to bend steel bars and do all that stuff. He was strong, and they had this physical exuberance, or aspect to them as well. To me, that's, man, you want to talk about being an interesting person in all sorts of conversations. Being able to help people through a wide array of things. There's a lot of value in that.
Well, and I think that what you just said right there is maybe the difference in pursuing these things is the idea of wanting to be able to help others.
Yeah.
I don't know any science behind it, but I think we could look at see people who are so inwardly focused and only work to benefit or build advantages for themselves, solely for themselves. I feel like they're probably less successful at those endeavors than those. You've said it a couple of times here today. I want to be useful, right? I want to be able to be useful for the duration of my life. I want to be able to ingratiate myself into any conversation to where I can provide a service and some help to those who are in there, and the humility to understand that I can also benefit and be helped from those conversations, right? I think there's real value to evaluating ourselves, especially as men or as fathers. Are we pursuing things in a way that not only we get the benefits from them, but they also set us up to help others? Yeah. They set us up to be a service to others, which I think is ingrained in our genetics. We're intended to help and serve and provide, and
even though it gets masked. So this kind of goes back to this generational rift we're saying. So I think amongst us, there's enough of that in our upbringing that we realize that. But there's some younger guys, they're late teens, 20s, maybe in their 30s, who that concept's completely foreign to them.
Absolutely.
It's just never even crossed their mind.
Absolutely. Which is so anti-American. I mean,
to me, it's anti-man, being a man.
Absolutely.
So, I don't say it in a derogatory way, because the bottom line is through no fault of their own, so
Sure.
to speak. At some point you become responsible when the information is presented.
Right. Once you're aware.
But you come across somebody, there's nothing greater than finding someone who wasn't aware, and you're able to give that to them, and they, boom, they
Take
wake
off.
right up. And yeah, that's a real good feeling.
So he's sitting right there, but I was really proud of CJ. We did a podcast. He and I did a podcast about growing up, being at 18 right now, and he made a really great analogy of when you see injustice, right? Whether it's in the hallways at the high school, whether it's on the side of the road, whether it's the way certain animals act towards their family. Monsters act towards their family, whatever it is. When you see an injustice, that you and I, we were raised that intervention is probably the right course of action. Versus now, there is such an apathy and a desensitized to these things happening that any involvement I might record it.
Yeah. That's even worse.
I might record it. I see it, might record it and get some clicks. If I don't do that, I'm just going to keep walking. And man, what we've surrendered as men is I mean, it's ghastly to think about, and I think that's the sort of the call is to work against that as best we can. And bring back some of
give these guys an environment to cultivate it. Because, in their peer circles in school and other places, it's not going to be there because, especially in regular schools, more of the natural aggressive behavior of boys is going to be suppressed, and it's artificially suppressed, which is even worse. But, giving them outlets, whether it's the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gym, that outlet, or, certain types of camping trips, anything that you can do to,
reinforce the fact that it's good to be a man. Well, I'm with you. So I mentioned it briefly. When I got out of the Army, I didn't know what I was going to do, all these things. I met my wife. She was studying to be a teacher. I said, okay, well, being a coach, that sounds right. So I did 18 years in education. Ultimately, I ended up as a high school principal, opened a couple of schools, all of these things. And not only leaving public school for me, the greatest thing I ever could have done. It literally the best thing for my health, for my mental well-being. Getting out of the public school system was the best thing I've ever could have done.
Wow.
One of the reasons that was not only was the system designed to suppress those naturally masculine things, it was designed to tell boys that those things are bad. I can't help but believe there is some nefarious force behind that message, right? And so I think you're absolutely right. Finding ways to work against that narrative is really important. So man, I feel like I could talk to you for like a week and we could just talk about whatever. But so I know you're doing some consulting, right? On this podcast, we talk a lot about preparedness. I do some firearms trainings and things like that. But the greatest gap, like if you had a one-liner in terms of someone who's preparedness minded, the hole you see most frequently that you would encourage them to fill, what would that be?
Because it goes back to mission analysis, but here's what I see pretty much off the top, and it's what I taught you, Scott, about earlier. It's your information environment. And that's kind of a big word for saying really your digital security. What's your online persona? Where are the vulnerabilities you've gone through? So let's just, because we talk about preppers.
Yes, sir.
They've gone to great lengths perhaps to get rural land, and they're off the grid. Food storage, all these things are done. But I've seen in the most extreme cases, especially there was one comes to mind in Georgia. Great guy, prepping just north of Atlanta.
Okay.
And
wow,
doing all this stuff. Well, beautiful area up there, Blue Ridge Mountains.
Love it.
Yeah. But when you do mission analysis, you also realize that if anything happens in the urban center of Atlanta, because there are actually people who've discussed doing this who live in Atlanta, of going up and basically robbing the cabins and
Exactly right.
the lines of communication.
People whose preparedness plan is to be a pirate.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
And that's where his whole was, because first of all, he was very prolific about his social media, talking about the stuff he was doing. There's photos with, are you familiar with the term EXIF data, EXIF? That's the metadata that, let's just say you had an iPhone, you took a picture or something. If you have the setting lost away, it's got the coordinates right there.
Oh, yeah.
The
Wow. Yeah.
So there are people who do these things, and their online presence is basically, for lack of better terms, create a beautiful targeting package to come and take whatever they have.
Oh.
And that's one. And the other angle is, though, is in their planning, or their online presence, perhaps they have very strong political opinions. They're
sure.
It makes them a target for someone to do something. Perhaps you refer to the term swatting.
Yes, sir.
So the SWAT team in their house, and that happens, and then as a result of the intervention of law enforcement for something that was frivolous, law enforcement might see something that you would rather not see, which then actually opens you up to a whole can of bass.
Yeah.
And it's a hole that's not hard to fix, but usually because it's so much harder or off the lines of, it's like 9 mil versus 45, or, do I get the dehydrated stuff, or those are things that guys tend to feel more comfortable with.
Sure.
Then when I'm all starting to talk to them about, keeping their metadata offline, all this stuff, then there's a big hole. You know what? It is rather easy to fix. Just takes some time, but man, you get that done, now you're just another gray man in the masses.
That's it.
And not to me. And if you do come to someone's attention, you're going to be harder target and profile, which tends to send people to the easier target.
Sure. I mean, I love that you. So I was texting my family as we were talking. I was like, we have so many things we have to change and tweak and all these things. And Scott and I have actually had lots of conversations, because we understand there's the practical application of not talking about your preps, right? Because you make yourself a target if whatever these crazy scenarios are happen, you make yourself a target of that. But it's also this idea of, okay, how do I help now when the air conditioner's still running and the semi trucks are still running? How can we help other people begin to prepare now for a worst case scenario that hopefully, God willing, never happens, right? Without making yourself that target. And it's like, I think each person has to come to a place where they're okay with a certain level of challenge to that. I did a talk a couple of weeks ago where I mentioned, a year's supply worth of food or whatever. And I said, I know that by saying that, everyone who sees this knows that at my house, there's a year's supply worth of food. I understand what a pirate would, how a pirate would look at that. And so I have to, I'm encouraging others to get themselves ready, because I feel like if something were to happen, I want to be able to sleep at night and know I did all that I could have done preemptively, because I'm not going to give away my food post whatever. But I also know that I have to make myself formidable enough that when the pirate goes, oh yeah, I know that he said he had a year's supply worth of food, I wouldn't mind coming and taking that.
What's the cost?
I was going to say, you better, I need to, there's an easier door to knock on than mine,
It's definitely it kind of goes in the conversation I also had at the table with you guys about defensive versus offensive.
Right.
The defense thing is, keeping you from being a target.
Sure.
The offensive is where, when you put out information, you've kind of thought about all those second and third order effects of it and how you're going to couch it.
Yep.
And perhaps also get the message out there, like, I've just shared this type of thing. Understand there is an equal but opposite aspect that I'm not telling you about.
Right.
Because that's how confident I am in releasing this information. It would not behoove you
to
do it. And that takes care of the pirates. But here's the other one we got to consider. And that's the pirates with legal authority. So think of FEMA. So disasters occur in certain areas. It's been known to confiscate people's goods.
Yeah.
To use it for that. Why do we need
Yeah.
to wait for the next pallet to come in? This guy's got a year's supply.
Let's
And
grab
they've
that.
done this. So
Oh,
just be aware of all aspects.
what a
of it.
great point.
So that's why, I'm in special forces. One of the tools of the trade is caching things. So
Sure.
a lot of people don't know this, but back during the Cold War, all over the world, we had caches of minimal amount of arms, mainly radios, like ham type radios.
Yeah.
Because we used to communicate with HF back in the day. And
Yeah.
they were all over the world, these caches. And I tell people who, don't put all your eggs in one basket. You might have the big gun safe, but you know what? Maybe some on your property. Maybe it's out in the national forest.
Yeah.
Caches of, don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Fantastic.
Same can be said for some food stores that are very good. They're already set up to be stored long term in a cache. So, as you're thinking about, okay, here's my exposure. How do I mitigate some of this in case someone does try to take it all?
Sure. Wow. No, man, that's you said it, second and third and fourth and fifth order implications.
Yeah, it's much
that
like
come
gear.
from that.
EDC,
Yeah.
So
Right.
EDC starts with the first line. You have the concealed pistol, maybe the pocket knife, a flash. You don't want to end up with a whole policeman's belt on. So then it goes to second line. You're like, I got my backpack. What's
in it? Yep.
What's in the car? What's at the guerrilla base, the home?
Yeah.
All that stuff. You just go out from that and you find what's reasonable. Because you got to be able to do it. There's all sorts of great ideas, but if you're not going to implement them and do them every day, then they're almost worthless.
And thinking them through is a waste of time if you're not going to be you're not going to pursue implementing them.
Kind of goes with some of this electronic stuff I was telling you guys about.
Yeah.
I can equip people, harden their phones, all that, but if they're going to just like cut off all the settings I told them to do because they want their convenience, it's a defeating.
Yeah, right. Then what's the point, right? Yeah. And the conveniences are so minimal. Versus like the idea of you have to enter the passcode.
Yes, exactly.
Take the Face ID off, and you have to enter the passcode to act.
Yeah.
It's a 1 second.
It is
convenience.
But that shows you where we are as a society, where people would even call that an inconvenience.
100%.
So I always have to remind myself that I used to have to talk on a phone that was attached
to the wall. Yes, sir. Right. My kids have never seen a rotary phone. They've never seen a phone attached to the wall. Yeah,
I love it when they see stuff like that. There's a TV show or something. That was the norm.
It was reality.
The first time they saw a payphone.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Because you rarely ever see those.
Almost nowhere.
You used to live and die by the payphone, brother.
Absolutely right. If you're going to be late, you better find a payphone to call home because it was the only way to do it. And so. So we'll like I said, I don't want to keep you all day. My dad commanded the largest company to serve in Vietnam.
Oh, whoa.
And so growing up in that home, right, came with a lot of predictable, expectations and things like that, right? And so when things would go wrong, my plans would go wrong, or I couldn't get a message home, or whatever it was, there weren't really any excuses that were accepted, and that was from the time I was like 10.
Yeah.
It was like, no, you could have found a way to meet the expectation. You just didn't.
Yeah.
You either chose not to, or you didn't put enough effort into meeting the expectation and things like that. And so it's always, I remember the times I was racing to find a payphone or to whatever it is. And it's an anecdotal story, but so much of that lesson, that generational lessons have fallen off.
Yeah.
Because
it affects us too, even though we grew up in that time period. So you think that we would just be completely okay, understanding there's going to be gaps, but even we find ourselves, especially once we have children, like, hey, where are you at? What's going on? So the tether has conditioned us, a little sheep.
Oh man,
so we got to always remind ourselves that's why it's good to run your own little exercises where, no phones are going to be in this situation. You're familiar with the term PACE, primary, alternate. So it's where you run your PACE. So in the old days, what's your emergency now was my everyday.
Was my only option. Yeah. That's perfect. So, well, man, I can't tell you how much I appreciate sitting down, having the conversation, allowing me to sit in with the conversation earlier. But there's such a wealth. Like Scott and I we took a break and you stepped out of the room and Scott and I were talking about it. It's like, it seems like every 10 seconds is going to be a 30-minute process. I got to process this for so much because there's so much knowledge, and so
I didn't mean to overwhelm.
not at all. Yeah. Please don't apologize. No, it's a wonderful thing, and I think that everyone who chooses to engage with you is going to benefit from your willingness to share the life experiences that you've had and your approach to the future moving forward. So I can't thank you enough for being willing to do it. It's much like it's the same exact sentiment that I have with Clay. I've been fortunate enough that Clay and I have become fairly close friends, and I get the exact same feeling from you, is that there's a humility that you're entitled not to have. Your career, the life you've lived, the acts of service you've done. If we could give a pass to someone not having humility, you fit that bill. But the humility that you have is inspirational, man, and it's going to benefit everybody, I think, that chooses to engage with you about it.
I think the humility has to stay in place because it was inculcated. I said, no, so a lot of people when they're first going into special operations unit, they're only focused on the selection.
Sure.
You need to get through selection so I can get into the pipeline and get the course. But once you're in, that's when the awakening occurs. Not man, getting through the Q course or buds, that's just the ticket to admission. Now you're on the teams. And as they say, selection never ends. Selection is an ongoing process. So you can't rest on your laurels.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's the way it is. So even though I'm no longer an operator, the way I look at it is I'm transitioning into the role of the village elder.
Yeah.
All the young warriors can do it. What I can pass on, I will. But it's knowing where your place is. Another saying we used to have is you can't eat yesterday's kill. Every day is a new kill. Because especially when you're at the height of your game, it's kind of like memento mori.
Yeah.
You have to have these reminders that today you're alpha.
Yeah.
And been there. I was honored graduate of the Special Forces course.
Awesome.
And I don't know if Clay's mentioned we had our own gunfighter school called Sephardic. I was the first ever honored graduate of that school. And that lasted 2 months. And then there was somebody better than me.
Sure, right.
So it's like you might be the top, man. You cannot live on it.
Can't live on it.
Because now there are people looking to knock you off the top.
Of course there are. You succeeded, and now you just made the target bigger. Yeah, man. Well, it's awesome. Well, again, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. And if there's ever anything that we can do to help spread the word, I want to do it.
Like you said, I might have to bring the kids down here and let them see what life's.
Oh man, I'm telling you, this is the last thing I'll say. I hate the weather here. It's hot. I hate being hot. My family will tell you all the time I hate being hot, but man, once you're here, it makes it hard to live anywhere else.
Yeah.
So please do. I would love the opportunity for our kids to all get together and one say, is everybody else's dad as crazy as mine? Right? Well, at least in this circle, yes. But also see the benefits from it. So it'd be awesome. All right, cool. Thank you, brother. I really appreciate it.
Right on.
All right, cool.